Hi, my name is Dang. Welcome to Halfway Wise. The talk of today's short topic is red flag phrases. Red flag phrases are essentially anything that a person says that should start setting off alarm bells in your head and that you need to be careful around this person. Let's get started. Red flag phrase number 1. I am blunt and to the point. What this person is trying to do is they're trying to preemptively gaslight you so that whenever they eventually trample on your feelings and bruise your emotions, they can just point back and say, look, I'm just being an upfront and honest person, and if you can't handle the truth, then maybe you shouldn't be here. It is possible to be honest and truthful without callously trampling on the feelings of others. The person who says, I am being blunt and honest, is actually more interested in emotionally abusing others than they are interested in the actual truth and actual effectiveness. Stand-up comedians and poets tell harsh truths all the time while being funny and tactful and respectful. If someone says, I'm blunt and honest, then they have fooled themselves into thinking that they are virtuous while actually being an asshole. Don't let them fool you. Distance yourself from someone who says, I am being blunt and honest, because we all try to be honest. Red flag phrase number 2. It's either leadership or friendship, and I choose leadership. Every single person who has ever said this to me has proven themselves to be unworthy of either leadership or friendship. The person who says it's either friendship or leadership has assumed that either of the two, friendship and leadership, are zero-sum games and that attaining to one is forfeiting the other. This is not the case. Some of the best leaders I have worked for have also been some of the best friends I've ever known. There's a time to prioritize leadership over friendship, but there is a way to do so without forfeiting friendship, or at least without souring the emotions and feelings of other people. It's not a zero-sum game. I'll give you an example from my own life. In my professional life, I am a marine engineer. I work on a ship for months at a time, and it's a very small group of people that I work with. And I am a junior engineer, and my immediate supervisor, my boss, is a first engineer. And I have worked for good first engineers, and I have worked for some pretty terrible first engineers. And one of the best first engineers that I've ever worked for is a close personal friend of mine. Anyways, an example I get to is that during my last voyage, my close personal friend, who is now my first engineer, my boss, my immediate first line supervisor, is responsible for me. And I made a mistake. I made a pretty silly yet serious mistake. I didn't check my oil lineup, and I wound up filling a tank with lubricating oil that should not have been filled with lubricating oil. And my friend, my boss, chewed me the fuck out, as he should have. We eventually corrected the mistake, and yeah, that chewing out really hurted, but I understood that he did what he had to do, and I did make a mistake on my end, and we worked to correct it, and we are still good friends to this day. And I would honestly jump at the opportunity to grab a beer with this particular first engineer again, or if he were to go somewhere else and work somewhere else, I would jump at the opportunity to go work for him, because he's that good of a boss, he's that good of a leader, and that good of a friend. He's overall one of the best mentors I have. But it is only possible to be a good leader and a good friend if you are mature, and if the person you are leading is also mature. It requires maturity from everyone. So be careful of who leads you, be careful of whom you select as your friends, and if you are in a leadership position, be careful how you lead others. Next red flag phrase. I believe in accountability. Of course everyone believes in accountability. You shouldn't have to say that. I have never once heard someone say, I don't believe in accountability at all. Yeah, you guys just do whatever heck you want, there are no consequences. No. The person who says, I believe in accountability from everyone, is also preemptively gaslighting you so that when they use the rules and regulations to bludgeon you, then they can just hold up this rule book and say, well, I'm just following the rules, I'm just following the company policy, or I'm just focused on effectiveness. These people who say, I believe in accountability, or I believe in holding others accountable, very rarely hold themselves to the same exacting standards. The person who also says that I believe in accountability, they're going to micromanage the hell out of you. They're going to use accountability as the grounds to humiliate and belittle you. And honestly, at the end of the day, they don't actually believe in accountability. They just are using the rule book as a way to emotionally abuse others for their own enjoyment. You shouldn't have to say you believe in accountability. You should just behave like it. And if you say, I believe in accountability, or you hear someone say, I believe in accountability, leave as quick as you can. Next emotional red flag phrase, it is either my way or the highway. The person who says this assumes that their way is aligned with the universal good at all times, despite what objective reality says. And no one is correct at all times. We all make mistakes. But what this person is functionally communicating is that they place more emphasis on being emotionally validated, i.e. people following their way, than what the correct way actually is, what actually works in reality. And this person places so much emphasis on their own emotional validation, which is already tenuous at best. The person who says, it's my way or the highway, is typically very insecure. If someone says it, then eventually they're going to get around to the point of emotionally abusing you, verbally abusing you, belittling you, because it's their way or the highway. Well, I recommend that you take the highway and get as far away from this person as quickly as possible. Next emotional red flag phrase, you are either my friend or my enemy. This person is approaching personal relationships as a zero-sum game, much like the person who says you can either have leadership or friendship. Personal relationships aren't zero-sum games. Sometimes people are just there. Like, you don't have to make a friend or an enemy out of everyone. And further to the point, the person who says I only have friends or I have enemies, this person doesn't actually have friends. They have people that they have held emotionally hostage. Don't become their hostage. Get away from them as fast as you can. Next red flag phrase, I'm worth it, or some variation, I know my worth, or I deserve it. It doesn't matter if you put your house on sale for $1 billion if no one wants to buy it. The person who says, I know my worth, is functionally doing the same thing. They're demanding someone pay $1 billion for their house because they alone have the infallible method of valuation. The market decides what is valuable. Every person who has ever used the phrase, I know my worth, doesn't actually know how to objectively, doesn't understand that the market is what evaluates and assigns value. And they're functionally communicating that they want you or whomever they're dealing with to pay more because they demand it to be so. They wish that they would be paid more in time, attention, resources, whatever. The person who says that I am worth it or I deserve it is entitled, and they're going to be a very difficult person to deal with in any kind of context, whether that be as a professional relationship, a romantic relationship, or just a personal friendship. You should run and head for the hills the moment someone says, I know my worth, or I am entitled to the, or I deserve this because of X, Y, and Z. Because whatever reason X, Y, and Z they give is usually their own self-determination and comes from a place of complete lack of self-awareness. So these are some red flag phrases that I've heard throughout my life. And every time someone has said this, and I've heard this from someone, they've usually proven themselves to be very difficult to deal with, and I wasted time, energy, and just emotional bandwidth in dealing with these people. So if you hear these red flag phrases, leave. If you enjoy this short talk, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing.